The folks in Atlanta were drinking the burnt orange Kool-Aid this week, and expectations for your Texas Longhorns are as high as they've been in a long time. We've got preseason honors to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We've got some insider nugs from Texas summer workouts to get to a little bit later in today's program, but we'll start with the fallout from SEC Media Days. Earlier today, a day after the conclusion of 2025 SEC Media Days, the conference released its preseason media poll and the All-SEC teams. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of love for our Texas Longhorns. We'll start with the poll. Sitting at the top, receiving a total of 3,060 points and 96 first-place votes, the Texas Longhorns. That's right. For the first time in school history, the Horns are preseason favorites to win the Southeastern Conference. Of course, we're only going into our second year in the conference. I want to ask y'all right off the bat, do you agree? Comment below if you think the voters got it right. Do you believe the Horns are going to win the SEC in 2025? The last time Texas was favored to win any conference, you don't have to go back very far. 2 years ago, Texas was favored to win the Big 12 in their final year in the conference, and they did. Hopefully that kind of history repeats itself here this season. 96 first-place votes for the Horns. Georgia racked up the second most first-place votes with 44. Believe it or not, of the 16 teams that were on the poll, because there are 16 teams in the conference, 11 of them received at least one first-place vote. Auburn, Ole Miss, and Tennessee all got one. Vanderbilt actually got two. It's the second year in a row that at least one person has picked Vanderbilt to win the SEC. Last year, they were obviously one of the best surprises in the conference, but they weren't very close to winning it. This year, two people picked the Commodores to win the conference. We'll get to some of the other names in a few, but to keep it on Texas, 96 first-place votes out of a possible 204. That's how many voted on this thing this year. More than double the number that second-place Georgia got. Again, 96 for Texas, 44 for UGA. Whoa. Like, I expected Texas to be on top of this thing. I did not expect it to be by this wide of a margin. I was there in Atlanta. And while there were a number of people covering the Longhorns this week, I can promise you there weren't 96. So it's not just people in Austin drinking the burnt orange Kool-Aid right now. Folks all over SEC land are getting drunk on this team. And look, it makes sense. The Horns made it to the SEC championship game last year. They probably would have won it if they had a real kicker. They made it further into the playoff than any other SEC team did last year. They're the only SEC team and the only anywhere team to have reached the college football playoff semifinal in back-to-back years. Steve Sarkisian has recruited at an incredibly high level. The Horns have portaled at an extremely high level. There's talent, there's depth, there's experience on this team. And even though there are questions, we'll acknowledge those, and we have, and we will continue to as we count down to the start of the season. There are plenty of answers with this 2025 squad as well. And looking around the league, we'll give the projected order of finish. I'll do a little screen share for those of you tuned in on YouTube. Everybody else behind Texas has some serious questions. Georgia's number 2, Alabama 3, LSU 4, South Carolina 5, Florida 6. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, you could see the rest of the countdown 1 through 16. We'll talk about some of the other teams for those of you listening in podcast form. But there's your top 6. All of those teams have questions. Did Texas lose a lot from last year's team? Yeah, of course. You know who lost more from their 2024 roster? Georgia. The teams projected to finish second and third, Georgia and Alabama, are also breaking in new starters at quarterback. No one's really sure if Kalen DeBoer's the guy for the Crimson Tide. There's some questions about him replacing Nick Saban. The team that was picked to finish fourth, LSU, they had the worst running offense and one of the worst rush defenses in the conference last year. Oh, by the way, they lost 4 offensive linemen and they lost 4 starting defensive linemen from a year ago. They've got questions. The team that's picked to finish fifth, South Carolina, they have their quarterback back. They lost a ton around him, and they haven't won 10 games in a season since 2013. The team that's picked to finish sixth, the Florida Gators, they have a coach that everyone wanted fired going into last November. I don't mean everyone around the country. I mean that fan base, Gators fans, were ready to move on from Billy Napier. Like their AD had to give the dreaded vote of confidence going into the last month of the season, and Florida fans were pissed off about it. But that's how close Billy Napier was to losing his job. So the point is, there are a lot of questions about everybody around Texas. You might think the Longhorns have some uncertainties, and they do. I agree with you. But so does everybody else. Here's what the Longhorns also have. 7 starters back from one of the best defenses in college football. They've got the only returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. They also have this guy named Arch Manning, next to kin, the first family of football. Nobody else around the SEC has any of those things. Texas has all of them. I did mention that I was surprised that Texas got more than double the amount of first-place votes as anyone else in the league. I went back and looked at last year's preseason poll. Georgia was picked to finish first. They got 165 out of a possible 213 first-place votes last year. Texas was picked to finish second. Voters got it right with 1 and 2. Texas only had 27 first-place votes. Nobody else in 2024 had more than 12, and only 7 teams got first-place votes last year. This year, there were 4 teams that got more than 20 first-place votes: Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and LSU in that order. Again, Texas only got 96 first-place picks. Georgia last year got 165. And then while last year only 7 teams got picked to win the SEC, this year it was 11. So what do those things say? Well, it tells you that the media kind of feels like this year is a bit more wide open in the conference. And I agree. But it also tells you that Texas has very quickly earned the respect of people in this conference. To go from 27 first-place votes, more than 130 behind Georgia, to 96, more than double Georgia in the span of a year, that's a big deal. And it's pretty cool. And I get it. It's a preseason poll. It doesn't really mean anything. You've got to go out there and win the damn thing. But I still think it's cool. And, I remember the doubters who said Texas wouldn't stand a chance in this league. And hell, there's still plenty of haters out there who still say Texas isn't this, Texas isn't that, whatever. Clearly, somebody thinks the Horns have this SEC thing figured out. They wouldn't be picking them to finish first. Again, there were 96 people representing the University of Texas at the College Football Hall of Fame this week. I was there. A lot of folks around the SEC are high on this Longhorn team. They are high on what Steve Sarkisian is building, and they've got plenty of reasons to be. So that's pretty damn cool. Now for Texas, go out there and complete the job. Couple of other thoughts. Look, it's fair that Texas is 1. No surprise that Georgia's 2. I thought one of those teams would be 1. The other one would be 2. To me, Alabama and LSU are kind of in that same first tier, and the votes kind of represent that because all 4 of those teams got at least 20 first-place votes. How about Texas A&M picked to finish 8th? Remember, they were a win away from making the SEC championship last year. Now, we all know they were never going to win that game against Texas because they don't beat Texas, but they were right there on the brink. Not a lot of folks high on the Aggies going into Mike Elko's second season. And then we talk about Brent Venables being on the hot seat a lot. It felt like people were kind of buying into Oklahoma. People have been kind of buying into Oklahoma. They were picked to finish 10th in the SEC this year. So even though they've got a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator and a lot of new coming off of 6-7 and a loss to Navy, they still were picked in the latter half of the SEC. They weren't even in the top 9 of teams in this conference. So pretty cool. Texas number 1, the 2 biggest rivals, 8th and 10th. And there you go. The preseason poll coming out of SEC Media Days in the ATL. Again, what say you? Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Would love to hear from y'all in the comments below. Let's move on here. How does a team get picked to finish first in its league? Well, it starts with having good players, and the folks who are in the ATL believe that Texas has some damn good players. We'll talk about the all-preseason SEC teams when we return right here on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, a word for our friends at Monarch Money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase like a house or a car, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over all of your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your credit cards, all of your investments, all of your spending, all in one place. So you can stop just managing your money and start actually building wealth. You don't need 15 different apps for your crypto, for your investments, for your cards, no, it's all there in one place. If you've got a spouse, you can put both accounts there as well. I'm telling you, managing your money and building wealth has never been easier than right now. So take control of your finances with our great friends at Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com and you're going to get 50% off your first year, just like that. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get half off your first year from Monarch Money. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. We talked about the preseason poll in the first segment. Now let's dive into the All-SEC preseason teams. There's 3 of them. The team that had the most players represented on those 3 teams, you guessed it, your Texas Longhorns. It's a pretty easy game we're playing here today, isn't it? We'll start with the first team. The Horns had 5 players who received first-team All-SEC honors, 2 on offense, 3 on defense. On the offensive side of the ball, it was running back Quintravion Wisner. We talked about him a little bit in the first segment, the only returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. There are a couple of guys who transferred into this conference who had 1,000 yards plus at their previous schools, but nobody else back here in 2025 had at least 1,000 in the SEC in 2024. No surprise that Trey Wisner is on this team. He's earned it. He's a hell of a story. The former 3-star turned into one of the best running backs in all of college football, not just in this conference, but in America. Expecting big things for an encore from Trey Wisner. The other offensive player, DJ Campbell. This one surprised me a little bit. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about every offensive lineman across this conference. DJ Campbell, the lone returning starter on the Texas offensive line, former 5-star. He's been pretty good at Texas. I've got high hopes from him this year in what should be his final year at Texas. A little surprised he was first team, but hey, happy for him. Very good player. Hopefully he becomes a great player. And more importantly, hopefully he's first team All-SEC at the end of the year. So a pleasant surprise. I thought DJ Campbell would be on, the second or third team. To see him on the first, though, good sign for him. I think a testament to the work he's put in, and I think a vote of confidence for Kyle Flood for a lot of folks around this conference. To the defensive side of the ball, pretty obvious. You probably don't need me to tell you this. Maybe you've already seen these teams, and you don't need me to tell you any of this anyways. But the 3 first-team All-SEC Texas defenders, 2 of them were in Atlanta, Anthony Hill and Michael Taff, and then Colin Simmons up front on the defensive line. Do I need to explain why these guys are here? Anthony Hill's the best linebacker in the country. He's a stud. He's going to be a top 10 pick in next year's NFL draft. Got to chop it up with him a little bit. One-on-one conversation in the ATL. Great dude. You see why his teammates love him. Turn on the tape, watch a game. You see why scouts love him. Easy guy to love. Speaking of easy guys to love, Michael Taff. We talked a lot about him yesterday or 2 days ago and the tie that he wore, honoring those who lost their lives in the horrific flooding in Kerr County and around Central Texas a couple of weeks ago. Great story. Walk on to to All-American and now preseason All-First-Team SEC. One of the best defensive backs in college football and a huge piece to this Longhorn defense in 2025. And then Colin Simmons going into year 2. Guy who was named the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year in college football, led Texas in sacks in 2024. Speaking of encores, I mean, this guy's talking about breaking the school record for sacks this year, going 20 plus. That'd be impressive. Hell, 15 would be awesome. Talking about Colin Simmons going for 20, breaking Kiki Deayala's record. I think it's 21 and a half or 22. Apologies for not knowing that off the top of my head. I'll look that one up and get back to you on that. But look, I wouldn't put it past him. That's a lofty number, lofty goal. But with what we saw from Colin Simmons in year one, yeah, I think he's got a shot to do something pretty special this year, and it's crazy that we have him for another 2 years in Austin. So, well-deserved for Colin Simmons, well-deserved for all 5 of those first-team Texas Longhorns. On to the second team, 3 Longhorns made the cut here. Wide receiver Ryan Wingo, defensive back Manny Muhammad, and the new punter, Jack Bomeister. Love that pickup. I know it's the punter. He's not going to get talked about a whole lot. Far from the most popular transfer portal addition that Texas made just because he's the punter, but this guy has been really good over the course of his college career. Texas did not get enough from its punting game last season. They lost some of that hidden yardage in the special teams game. Texas's special teams just as a whole was not nearly as good as it should have been in 2024. So, yeah, I like the Bomeister pickup. I think he has earned this spot because of what he's done in his past. Ryan Wingo, this is, this is a projection. This is a preseason team. I think Ryan Wingo should be the number 1 receiver on this team. The former 5-star didn't play a ton, played a few different roles, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife at times for Texas this year. Yeah, he's going to be a starting wide receiver, and he's going to be asked to do a ton in this Longhorn offense. If he lives up to the hype, he could put up some gaudy numbers with Arch Manning, and he could really help this offense get to another level this season. Can't wait. I'm excited to watch every Texas player. I can't wait to get to the start of the season. But like Ryan Wingo, if I was ranking players I'm most excited to watch on this Longhorn team in 2025, Ryan Wingo would be very close to the top. Arch Manning's obviously number 1. You won't have to go too far down the list for Ryan Wingo. I'm pumped to see what he does in his sophomore season. And then Manny Muhammad. I'm a Manny Muhammad believer. I am the leader of the Manny Muhammad fan club. I think he had a great year last year. PFF agrees with me. The playoff was not good. The Clemson game was not good. I'll say it was bad. The Arizona State game, not great. But Manny Muhammad, more often than not, that last year was very good for Texas. Now his role is going to get tougher because now he's the number 1 corner. I don't know why I said now like 6 times in 2 seconds there. But no Jahdae Barron, who took the number 1 receivers a year ago. Now that's Manny Muhammad's job. We'll see what he does. But again, I'm buying in. I voted him on my team. I think he deserves to be here. I think he's going to prove that he deserves to be here. And then last but not least, the third team, the remaining 5 Texas players. I mentioned there were 13. The last 5 make team number 3, including quarterback Arch Manning. This feels fair. Lenore Sellers was the first team quarterback. That was a bit of a surprise. Garrett Nussmeier was number 2. I thought those guys would be flip-flopped. Those are, I think, the 2 best returning starting quarterbacks in the SEC. A little surprised Nuss isn't one, but hey, Lenore Sellers is a supreme talent. Big things expected of him in South Carolina. I think this is fair for Arch Manning. Could he be first team at the end of the year? Absolutely. He's one of the favorites. He's right there with Garrett Nussmeier as the Heisman favorite this year. He's got better odds than Lenore Sellers does to win the most coveted individual trophy in college football. But this feels fair right now, considering Arch has only started 2 games and those other guys have started a lot more. Jack Injuries, the transfer tight end from Cal. Y'all know how I feel about him. I think this might be a little low, honestly. I think Jack Injuries is also a guy who will be on the postseason team. And then Trevor Goosby on the offensive line. Maybe a tough guy to place. I'm glad he made a team. I was worried he wouldn't because he hasn't played a whole lot. But the way he looked against A&M, the way he looked against Georgia, the way he looked against Clemson, I think we were all very impressed by Trevor Goosby when he was kind of thrown into the fire late last season. Kelvin Banks was awesome. I obviously don't mean any disrespect to Kelvin Banks. He's one of the best offensive linemen that Texas has ever had. I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop-off at left tackle. That's just how confident I am in Trevor Goosby this year. I think he's like one and done as a starter. I think he's going to be an NFL draft pick next year, and a very high one at that. So I'm glad he made the team. Another guy who I think has potential to be even higher than third team when the season's all said and done. On defense, Trey Moore. And then shout out to Will Stone, your kickoff specialist. Yeah, that was something you could vote on. It was long snapper, kickoff specialist, return specialist, all-purpose. I mean, it was the obvious positions and then a hell of a lot more. Kickoff specialist. Shout out to Will Stone. He's done a tremendous job the last 3 years. And he's getting a little bit of love from the folks around SEC country. Trey Moore, a little more on him. No pun intended. Great second half to the season. if he can build on that. It took him a while to get going. Obviously, transferring in from UTSA, big step up in competition, going from the AC to the SEC. Took him a little bit to figure it out. And then once he did, yeah, really good, really impressive in the latter half of the year and into the college football playoff. If he could put that together for a full 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 games, however long the Horns are playing this year, yeah, he's going to be a stud. He's going to put up great numbers. And boy, Colin Simmons and Trey Moore on opposite sides, plus Ethan Burke and Colton Votts. Yeah, that's a problem for opposing offensive lines. I don't know if any team in America has that type of edge talent that Texas does. And that's awesome. Any snubs? DeAndre Moore, maybe. Maybe a defensive tackle, maybe Leon Galafau, maybe another defensive back. Like DeAndre Moore was the name that popped to the top of my head first. Let me know if there's somebody who didn't make the cut who should have, or if somebody you think is disrespected, maybe a little bit too low, according to the SEC voters. But there you go. 13 Texas Longhorns on the 3 preseason All-SEC teams. By the way, Georgia and Alabama finished tied for second. They each had 11 players selected on these rosters. All right. Good stuff there. A lot of love for the Horns. High hopes, high expectations for Texas, not just in Austin, not just around the state, not just with Longhorn Nation, but with folks all over the SEC. One segment to go on a Friday show. We've got some insider nuggets from Texas summer workouts. Let's talk about the Longhorn secondary. Some good stuff on the other side right here on Locked On Longhorns. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Final segment of the week. We've got a few insider nugs on the Texas secondary as we sit 43 days away from kickoff against Ohio State. We'll start with a little note on Jelani McDonald. He's been seeing plenty of work at the star position, the nickel position in this Texas defense. I think Texas has 3 guys that could potentially be the starter at star, or at least in the heavy rotation at star. Jalen Gilbo is one of them. Wardell Mack is one of them. But again, Jelani McDonald, I think, is another one of them. Even though he's played traditionally safety in the early stages of his Texas career, he's been getting a lot of work at that new position. And Dwayne Akina is known for cross-training his defensive backs. He did that a ton during his first stint at Texas. I assume he's doing that here in his second stint in Texas as well. You talk about versatility a lot, and that star position is as versatile of a spot as you will find on the team. You need great athletes. You need great speed. You need guys who can work in space. It's tough to cover guys in the slot because you don't have the sideline to work with as an extra defender. You need somebody really good there. I like that Texas has a few different options, but I'm pretty excited to see what Jelani McDonald can do there this year. Speaking of Jalen Gilbo, Gilbo's been working at star, but he's also been working at the cornerback spot opposite of Manny Muhammad. Similar to what Jahdae Barron did going into his final year in Austin. Jahdae Barron was the star. Then his senior year, he switches to outside corner. It worked. Won the Thorpe Award. Ended up as a first-round pick. I don't know if I'm predicting that for Jalen Gilbo, but as of right now, he figures to be the guy opposite of Manny Muhammad for the season opener against Ohio State. The Buckeyes have the best receiver room in the country. That feels fair to say. I think they've got the best receiver in the country with Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate's back. Brandon Innes is back. No Emeka Ibuka, but it's the Buckeyes. They got 15 Emeka Ibukas because that's what they do. So it'll be a test for this Longhorn secondary early on against the Buckeyes. Kobe Black is playing a lot. Sounds like he's the first guy off the bench at those cornerback spots for Texas right now. Another name, I keep hearing about Grayson Littleton, early enrollee freshman. I feel like I've heard his name just about as often as I've heard any other early enrollee's name so far this year. 4-star recruit, not the highest graded player that Texas brought in, but again, a guy who is making some early waves here. I don't know if he's going to get immediate playing time because Texas has a lot of talent and a lot of guys in that secondary who have been here for multiple seasons. But, long term, maybe we won't see it this year, or hell, maybe we will in games 2 through 4 against the lesser opponents on this schedule. But long term, remember that name, Grayson Littleton. Curious what his 2025 role will be, but 2026 and beyond, I think he's going to play a big part in this defense's success. Derek Williams Jr., an injury update on him. He is fully back on the field. I wonder if he will be in that green non-contact jersey for part or all of fall camp just to preserve some hits. Don't need him getting hurt in fall camp, right? And a game that doesn't count. He is really good. Loved what he did as a freshman. Loved what he was doing in his second year. Got hurt in the Oklahoma game. Did not return last season. I think he could be a stud. And you add him to this Texas secondary. Again, there's already talent, but Derek Williams Jr. back. Yeah, that's going to be huge for Texas. So the movement is back to where Texas wants it to be. Huge. I'm such a big fan of Derek Williams. I hated that he got hurt last year. You had Andrew Makuba, you had a bunch of other guys, so the secondary was fine. This year, I think without Makuba and Barron, the role of Derek Williams Jr. is going to increase. And last but not least, a quick Jonah Williams update. It's a weird situation for him. Obviously, he played baseball this year, so he didn't participate in much of spring ball. He's only had like a month and a half of on-field work, so he's, needing to get up to speed with play calls and responsibility at the safety position. And I think he's practicing at both safety positions right now. Sounds like Michael Taft has kind of taken Jonah Williams under his wing. That's a good guy for Jonah to learn from. Again, first team All SEC and All American caliber player. Yeah, I love that. And Jonah Williams, another one of those guys that I just am pumped to watch play this year. The least surprising thing ever, by the way, one last nugget today. When Jonah Williams is on the field, he is about as much of a smack talker as anybody else. I mean, if he makes a play, everyone on the field hears about it. If you watched that guy play baseball this year, that doesn't surprise you one bit. He is a confident son of a gun. Doesn't matter what it says on the scoreboard. People dunked on Jonah Williams for like talking smack when Texas was losing. And then there are other people who are like, well, how come you only talk when your team's winning or when you're winning? It's like you can't have it both ways. Jonah Williams doesn't care what the scoreboard says. That guy walks around with his heart on his sleeve, and he is incredibly confident 24/7, 365. That's one of the things that makes him such a great personality. One of the things that helped him become, one of the top 10 players in the country coming out of high school at a Galveston ball, and a great baseball player as well. So there you go. Jonah Williams talking some noise. Again, that shouldn't surprise anybody. So there you go. Some insider notes from Texas summer workouts on the Longhorn secondary. That's going to do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number one, thank you. Number two, please remember to like, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Really appreciate y'all's continued support of Locked On Longhorns. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They are your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs, expert analysis, game picks, the lock of the day. They've got you covered. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We got some recruiting to talk about on Monday, more fallout from SEC Media Days, and so much more. We're talking about all of it because there's never a dull moment on the 40 acres. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.